So D&D 5e is great, right? But in many ways, it will never compare to the broken, insane, and wildly fun mess that was edition 3.5. Yes, that's right. Wizards released a half edition, mostly to make more money. You know what? I wrote this before the OGL mess, and now the new D&D Next is Dead thing, and it just rings so obvious. I don't know. But so here are 3 absolutely unhinged 3.5 weapons and how I would stat them for D&D 5e. First off, Claw Bracer. Let's start off like simple and essential, right? A Claw Bracer is a set of Wolverine claws that like sticks out about 4 inches past your hand, right? From a bracer that's attached to your wrist. Like that kind of a mood, right? It's great for like impaling, for slicing, for dicing, for slitting, probably for opening like beer bottles, right? Just a multi-tool, multiple purpose item. So the Claw Bracer was a must for any particularly handsy, for any particularly somatically casting caster, so that they could still have the option to quickly slice and slash, dice, slice and slit and stabbo, but then go back to casting their special spells. Right? The weapon was all in all pretty simple. It deals D4 damage, and it doesn't really do anything else in the 3.5 rules. But apart from costing more than a dagger does, it doesn't add or take anything away. It's priced at 30 gold, which in 5e is just absolutely exorbitant. It's just like a blade and some leather. Like I could stitch that together myself. It makes no sense. I think that our blade needs to be costed down, right? Needs to be get a little discount on that puppy. And it also needs a little detriment, right? Because otherwise it's as good as the spell ruby thing. There's a ruby that allows you to cast spells while holding your weapon. So first off, it's a bracer, right? You can't just like slip it on. It takes a minute to equip and get tight, and it takes 2 rounds to fully pry it off your hand. And second, like using other weapons while you have this Claw Bracer on is hard because you have to have like a degree of flexibility, and you're gonna run your longsword into your stabby part, right? So you have disadvantage while you're swinging weapons while you have the Claw Bracer on. But let's drop the price down to 10 gold pieces, but let's bump the damage up to, I don't like that. I was gonna say D6, but now that I'm like thinking about it, no. It's a dagger, it's a claw dagger. It's like easy to conceal. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. It can retract. Advantage on sleight of hand to conceal it. Perfect. We solved it. 10 gold pieces, 1d4 of damage. It's obviously a finesse weapon. Easy. Easy, solved. Next up, we're starting to get a little wild. We're getting away from like the first one was just like solving a problem that casters had, is what 3.5 was doing. This one is getting into making new problems for your dungeon master, which is, it's where I live. Let's be real. This is the Elven double bow. This absolutely absurd weapon that sounds like something that Michael Bay would give Legolas if he had directed Lord of the Rings. It is exactly the kind of things that my players read me drooled over back in the day. Now this bow has not 1, but 2 strings, allowing you to fire double the arrows. I mean, in defense of Michael Bay's Lord of the Rings, that flawed masterpiece that never actually happened, that's a freaking awesome idea. Gimli would have no chance unless he had double the axes. To be fair, he did have a lot of axes, but I digress. The double bow allows for a second arrow to be knocked with a move action, and then makes a single attack at -2, hitting with both arrows if successful. But it can only crit with 1 of the arrows. So if you critted while you had both of them knocked, you would do 3d8 instead of like 4d8 for both of the arrows critting. So if you can't tell, I love all of this. I love all of it. Like, it is so freaking cool. It allows a sniper to really dig in, not not move and do solid damage. And you could even skin this as like a great bow or something, where if you take your time and you don't move, you can like overdraw the bow and just really let them have it. I think that's so freaking cool. I mean, with something like that, you could even kind of eliminate the half crit for the second arrow and just do like 48. Like, that's fine by me. What I don't like is the very 3.5 -2 to hit. I think we just don't need that, and I don't think we need to give them disadvantage on anything either. It's like this middling in between debuff that doesn't really matter and doesn't add anything to the game. Make it cost more. This puppy rings up in the old game. Well, you know, I didn't write down how much it cost in the old game, but in 5e, I would have it cost 1,000 gold. No, that's a little cheap. 1,500 gold for the whole ass extra damage dice in exchange for a move every turn. You know, maybe 2,000. You know, it's your magic shop. You do you. D&D 5e's economy is so absolutely fucked. Next up is the Mercurial Greatsword. You might be thinking, what does that mean? What is so mercurial about it? Does like it shift and change? Is it magical? No, this is a mundane item. Oh, then is it like made out of mercury and does it poison people? No, you pleb, not at all. This absolutely ridiculous weapon is described as such. This huge blade hides a secret reservoir of quicksilver, also called mercury by alchemists, that runs along the interior of the blade in a slender channel. When the blade is vertical, the mercury swiftly fills an interior bulb in the haft, but when swung, the heavy liquid flows out into the blade, making it heavier. Like, what? What angsty teen discovered that mercury was an especially heavy thing and then came up with this absolutely bonkers idea? I love it so much. So this ridiculous 600 gold and 3.5 weapon was super hard to use. It gave you a rocking -7 to hit if you weren't proficient in it. And these were exotic weapons, right? Which doesn't sound very good anymore, but they had to do with like strange weapons that weren't the like typical martial weapons that you had to like specifically train in. Honestly, a cool mechanic on paper because it makes your character special, but in game it just made for so many options that you could never use and you had to like waste a feat on it. It's so boring, so boring. Just make all weapons usable and then you'll have cooler games. So it functioned, this Mercurial Greatsword, it functioned like a greatsword, right? Doing 2d6 of damage, but it did a whopping 4 times damage on a crit, meaning that your fighter was suddenly busting out 8d6 of slashing damage if they got lucky. And in 3.5, with like all these crazy ways to increase the threat range of your crit, so you could like crit on a 17 and up, that shit was broken. Absolutely broken. Like the -7 hit didn't matter because you were critting 15% of the time. I don't know. I'm not the best math guy. Just like a crazy amount of the time, you were hacking into boys and automatically hitting and critting. Or at least that was how I played. I think you had to like confirm crits in 3.5. It's been so long. Let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the now, on your game and my game in 5th edition. It's actually a little less broken. And it's actually a super cool idea for a magical weapon, right? Doing crazy multipliers on crits was like a thing in 3.5 and it isn't in 5th edition, and it can absolutely break a game. We have to restrict the amount of times a player can use this crazy ability. Honestly, I would break this up into a couple of different rarities. Uncommon, the weapon has 1d3 charges, does not regain charges, so this is a limited thing, right? And it can only use a charge once per day. Huge amounts of damage. Now rare, 1d6 charges, maybe like 1d6 plus 2, so you don't end up with just like 1 charge, and it can only use it once per day. And then very rare, 4 times damage on a crit, no charges. It's like an incredibly expensive item. So I'd price these items high, right? Because with the right build, you can have about a 27% chance of getting a crit, or at least that's what Reddit tells me. And I don't need my party to just alpha strike anything just straight into the plane of negativity. It's a magical weapon. Maybe like the mercury is part of the sword and is like as it swings, it gets larger at the tip, or maybe it's like a hammer actually and it like changes its weight and size. I don't know, but you skin it however you would. I like the like changing size hammer as you swing. That's pretty freaking cool. So you can build up momentum and then suddenly it's huge and moving a little slower and slam. So that also means that it cuts through damage reduction just like a Moonblade would, or a +1, even though it doesn't have the +1 to damage. I would make it 1,000 gold for uncommon, 2,000 gold for rare, and 6,000 gold for a very rare once a day hyper crit. Just once a day hyper crit, bam. You know, it's sweet Salune. That is a lot of damage in the right hands. And if you did a smite on that thing, okay, so that's 1,500 for uncommon, 3,000 for rare, and 7 to 10,000 on a very rare once a day hyper crit. Bam, fixed. I think. Okay, thank you for watching. Now, I love these items. In 3.5, they were all mundane, but there are also some crazy magical items that were just like absolutely broken. Comment what I forgot. Let me know what 3.5 items you actually used that were like crazy and exotic, and to what effect you used them to. And in the meanwhile, stay miles away from boredom. I'll see you next time. What's up? Such a good nap, boy.